Alright, so starting off this list off, in at number 10, we have one of the most terrifying things I can imagine. This one woman had gotten surgery for a cyst on her liver. For 3 years afterwards, she kept complaining about the pain in her abdomen. But for whatever reason, she didn't go to the doctors about it. I mean, if I was in excruciating pain for any length of time after a surgery, I'd definitely go to the doctors to see what's up, because something inside ain't right. But that's just me. Anyway, she didn't go to the doctors until, well, get this, she literally pooped out part of a pair of surgical forceps. Not a whole pair, it was just a part pair, but she finally went to the hospital where they removed the rest of it. So over the 3 years, because yeah, she waited that long, it ended up turning black, and it actually broke down into pieces inside of her, which explains why some of it was able to be pooped out and the doctors were able to remove the rest. Next up, number 9 is another pair of forceps. I mean, what is going on? Don't you have someone in the surgical room that counts out the instruments? Like, we have 10 forceps, and okay, now we only have 9. Obviously it's inside of someone. I think it's inside of the person we cut open. Well, during treatment following a road accident, a man in Vietnam found out that he had been living with a pair of 15 centimeters. That's really big. It was a surgical forceps inside of his abdomen for the past 18 years. Is this real life right now? Apparently surgeons who were operating on him after a different road accident had left them there 20 years prior. The man stated that while he had gone to the doctors for a mild but long-lasting pain after his original surgery, he was told that it was an ulcer, he was given pain meds because of that, and he was sent on his way. I guess he's lucky for that second road accident, because who knows what could have happened or how long that would have went on for. Taking our number 8 spot, and honestly making me squirm a little bit, well, now we're talking about wires that are often used in surgery, and depending on what the procedure is, they can also be intentionally left inside for medical reasons. They're not usually 2 feet long, and they're not usually left to hang outside of your chest. One Philadelphia man had this exact situation happen to him after having open heart surgery. The surgeons accidentally left a wire inside of his chest cavity, and somehow not only did this man not know anything was wrong, but he didn't even feel anything. He only found out about it at a follow-up appointment over a month later. Luckily, there were no additional damages caused by the wire, but can you imagine if it had punctured anything? Okay, moving on, in at number 7, I think is one of my biggest fears. A surgeon who operated on an army vet managed to forget a whole scalpel inside of him. I mean, a knife. A knife was left inside of him. The patient didn't even know for 4 years, and only found out when he went to the hospital complaining of extreme dizziness and abdominal pain. The scalpel had somehow lodged themselves between his bladder and rectal area. I mean, can you guys say ouch? He had surgery to remove it, and luckily now he's doing fine. He's doing okay. But what I don't understand is how the scalpel didn't slice him up on the inside, or maybe it was. Maybe he was internally bleeding. It's not like an X-Acto knife where the blade retracts, so I don't get it. I don't get this one. If there are any medical professionals watching this video right now, because I know there are a lot of you guys out there, let me know in the comment section below, how do you have a knife inside of your body that doesn't cut the insides open? Our number 6 slot is filled with yet another scalpel. I mean, this is a common trend with this video, and this story might be even scarier than the last one. This patient had undergone a heart bypass surgery only to return to the hospital months later because he was worried that there was an issue with his gallbladder. While the surgeons were aware of the missing scalpel, which didn't exactly seem too concerned about if you asked me, but the initial x-ray didn't show any sign of it in the patient's abdomen. But that's because, as a second x-ray would show, the scalpel had moved from his chest into his abdominal cavity, which lodged itself super close to his spine. Doctors decided that it was in a too dangerous position to be removed. I mean, that is scary. If you told me that, I'd be freaking out. So they had to just leave it there. I mean, is this real life right now? Can you imagine living the rest of your life knowing there is an insanely sharp instrument just chilling close to your spine? Number 5 on this list is one of the most common items left inside of people, but unfortunately this specific story has a really tragic ending. A man in California was undergoing a fairly simple surgery and everything seemed to be going well. But the surgeons accidentally closed him up with a sponge left inside of him. 10 days later, the man ended up going into cardiac arrest and he passed away. The autopsy showed that the heart attack was caused by inflammation and an infection in the tissue lining in his abdomen. This is where they found the sponge, which had grown bacteria on it that caused the infection. Next up at number 4, we have a retractor. Back in 2000, a man was explaining to his doctor that he was experiencing pains after his cancer removing surgery. His doctor wasn't concerned and said that they would fade in about a month. Well, needless to say, this man demanded a second opinion after he set off metal detectors at the airport. A CAT scan later showed that a 13-inch retractor had been pushing against his abdomen and chest, which caused him to feel as if he was slowly being suffocated. Can you imagine just feeling like you're slowly dying every single day? Number 3 on this list goes to a woman who had an epidural needle stuck in her spine. Okay, listen, my wife and I just had a baby, so I can sympathize with this one, with how painful pregnancy and childbirth can be. Even getting an epidural in the first place can incredibly be painful. But this woman's pain went on for a lot longer than she bargained for. Back in 2003, a woman in California had an epidural prior to getting a C-section. After 14 years of extreme back pain, she went in for an x-ray and found out that during her epidural, the needle broke off and had remained in her back the entire time. Not only that, it had been broken in 3 different places along her spine and had caused severe nerve damage and scarring. Coming in at number 2 is a story that honestly sounds like it's straight from a horror movie, but I tell you guys it's not. It's real life. I think. The woman in this story underwent surgery to stop her intense periods, and she was told that everything went smoothly, but she was still in intense pain, which is exactly the reason she got the surgery in the first place. She ended up going back to the hospital and was dismissed, being told that it was because of her weight and they just sent her home with painkillers. These painkillers did absolutely nothing for her, and after a few days later, she started having even more intense pains. It turns out that these pains were due to her having contractions, which resulted in literally giving birth to a glove and 5 compresses that had been left inside of her during the surgery. I don't even have anything to say about that. That's just horrifying. And finally, in number 1 is a story that is hard to even wrap my head around. The surgery that this last man had was supposed to be a simple one, and it was, but everything after the fact was anything but. After the surgery, when he was supposed to be feeling better, this patient started feeling worse, not better. He was fatigued, in pain, and overall very sick. When his nurse went to check up on his stitches, well, she noticed that there was gauze, it was like sticking out of it. Well, thank God that she saw that, because the gauze turned out to be the least of his concerns. Further scans discovered that he actually had 16 additional items in his body. Is this real life right now? Including swabs, a 15-centimeter roll of bandages, a compress, needles, a part of a medical mask, and other surgical tools and instruments. This is a big mess up. It requires 2 more surgeries to get everything removed, so he didn't even need 1 surgery to remove everything, it took 2. But luckily he lived to tell the tale, and luckily he was able to live to be able to sue the hospital. Hopefully he was awarded millions of dollars. Well, what I want to know is how these surgeons managed to leave an entire hospital inside of 1 person.
Coming up at our number 10 spot, we have the Myrtles Plantation Mirror. Myrtles Plantation is a place in St. Francisville, Louisiana, that is known for being extremely haunted. There are so many ghost sightings and photographs, and in particular, there is a mirror where people tend to see ghosts in. People believe that the mirror holds the spirits of a mother and her young ones that passed away in the home. Apparently, a handprint continues to appear in one of the corners of the mirror, even though it continues to be wiped away by staff. Whoa! The mirror is definitely haunted and cursed. In our number 9 spot, we have the Kohinoor diamond. The Kohinoor diamond has been said to be cursed for centuries, but more specifically for males. It is said that only God or women can wear it with impunity. All else who wears it will be cursed. It is said to bring about great wealth to all women and great misfortune to all men. It dates back thousands of years, but it is currently in the hands of the British royal family, and it has been worn by Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth. I wonder how people started thinking that the crown was cursed. I bet you some woman, thousands of years ago, was mad at her husband and convinced him that the crown was cursed so she could have it all to herself. Like they say, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. In our number 8 spot we have The Crying Boy. This is a painting of a boy that is crying that is said to be haunted. I had never heard of it before today, but apparently this painting is widely known around the world and on the internet as possibly being cursed. The painting is literally of a boy that's really crying, like a waterfall of tears is falling down his face. I could see why people would feel something when looking at it, as the energy is quite strong and of course sad. Anyways, regardless, this painting was made by a Spanish artist named Giovanni Bragolin, and the painting was actually mass produced after the war in England, and also so many homes caught on fire after purchasing this painting, and the painting seemingly survived each time. People believed it to be cursed because, well, the painting never burned down with the houses. But many years later, the paintings were analyzed and it was proven that they had been coated with a fire repellent. It still doesn't explain all of the fires in the first place. Like, why were there so many fires after people purchased this painting? So that's why people are still very weary on this painting and believe it to be cursed. In our number 7 spot, we have the Delphi Purple Sapphire. This stone is also known as the cursed amethyst because it's probably cursed and you should probably not touch it. This stone was apparently stolen from the Temple of Indra in 1857 and then brought to England by Colonel W. Ferris. It is said that after this he lost all of his fortune and received an enormous amount of bad luck. Any person after him that came into contact with the stone came upon some bad luck. Allegedly, a singer lost her voice after having the stone. Whoa. It now rests in the London Natural History Museum, and even the person that brought it there said they experienced a horrible storm while en route. Coincidence? I think not. In our number 6 spot, we have the Hope Diamond. So many cursed jewels in the world, it almost makes you believe in the possibility that it can hold energy. But wait! Everything is energy, so of course it can. We could probably go down a rabbit hole here, but whatever, I'm gonna stop myself. Anyways, the Hope Diamond is a large blue gemstone that is worth approximately $250 million. This is one of the most known cursed jewels around the world, as it has reportedly caused great misfortune and misery to whomever wears it. The reportings of misfortune date all the way back to 1653 in India, when a French merchant took the gem from one of the eyes of a Hindu idol, and eventually this merchant was eaten to death by dogs. Misfortune may be an understatement in this case. It's a good thing most of us will never get anywhere close to this object in our lifetime. In our number 5 spot, we have the Blarney Stone. This is a stone located in Cork, Ireland, and it is believed to be quite powerful. Kissing the stone is said to bring a person luck. But if there is any removal of the stone, even by taking a few pieces of the stone, the person who has removed it will be cursed with bad luck. Misfortunes such as loss of jobs, financial lows, and depression have been reported and associated with those that have taken parts of the stone. Apparently, these parts that have been taken have been mailed back after they have felt the wrath of this curse. That's pretty funny when you think about it. You would think mailing it wouldn't do any good unless there's someone there to put the stone back. I doubt there's some kind of employee that's, unwrapping people's mail and putting the pieces of the stone back, and if there is such a person, even if they're a volunteer, bless them. In our number 4 spot, we have Elmo. Yes, Elmo, the character from one of the most iconic shows called Sesame Street, is known to be a cursed doll. Honestly, I heard about this one and instantly it checked out for me because my brother had an Elmo doll and it would just start talking randomly and we totally thought it was haunted. So it's comforting to know that other people had strange occurrences with it. Apparently there is a story about a boy that loved Elmo and was gifted it, and a few days after receiving it, the Elmo started saying, "Kill James," continuously. Whew, that's horrifying. Definitely stay away from the Elmo doll, just saying. In our number 3 spot, we have a piece of Uluru rock. Yet another cursed rock to stay away from. This is a large sandstone rock formation in the North Territory, Australia, and apparently this place is sacred for the indigenous people of the area. They advise that no one should take anything from the site, no small rocks or pieces or anything. But of course, do people always listen when told to not do something? No. The people that have taken pieces of the formation, though, have reported experiencing severe illness afterwards, bad luck, deaths, and terrible breakups. It feels like we've been too conditioned by movies to believe in any real magic that we forget about where writers of movies get their inspiration from. In our number 2 spot, we have the Belcourt Castle chairs. There is a summer cottage in Rhode Island, and apparently in the ballroom there are a number of cursed chairs. The idea of cursed chairs just seems so silly to me. Out of all the objects in the world, why a bunch of chairs? Well, as silly as it sounds, there have been too many sightings and experiences to count that proves this theory. People have reported feeling chills up and down their spine, and people have reported feeling a strange sensation of energy around them. Also, it has been reported by many a feeling of being pushed down from the chairs by an unseen force. I kinda wanna go there and experience that. Anyone else? But I suppose if we will be forever cursed, then maybe we shouldn't. In our number 1 spot, we have the haunted wedding dress. I'm sure there are many haunted wedding dresses around the world. Heck, I would say any marriage that ends in divorce, the wedding dress is probably not high vibes. But this one in particular, from a girl named Anna Baker, is known to be quite haunted. Anna Baker was from a rich family, and in 1849 she fell in love with an iron worker, aka someone of lower breeding, as they used to say. A lower class chap. Anyways, she was forbidden to marry him, and Anna had already bought her wedding dress. Oh no! Allegedly, she was heartbroken, and she decided that she would never marry anyone ever again, and she ended up passing away single as a maid in 1914. Her house eventually became a museum, and they say that her old wedding dress is haunted, and many people have reportedly seen the wedding dress moving in its glass box. Yeah, it's definitely cursed.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have King Tut's curse. This is perhaps one of the most famous curses of all time that we're starting off with. In 1922, Egyptologist Howard Carter discovered Tutankhamun's tomb in the Valley of Kings, Egypt. To this day, it remains the only intact and complete royal burial of an ancient Egyptian pharaoh found in modern times. An inscription on the wall reads, "Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king." They ignored this warning. Carter and his team entered and began to remove the priceless artifacts. 6 weeks later, one of Carter's associates died from a mosquito bite. Soon after, relatives of the team began to die in mysterious circumstances. One famous example involved their secretary being found dead in her bed, which then drove her father to commit suicide. In total, there have been some 11 deaths linked to the so-called King Tut's curse, and some say they will never end unless the tomb's treasure is returned. Moving on to number 9 now, we have the Hope Diamond. This is one of the most famous diamonds in the world, a 45.52 carat piece that has been owned by a number of famous people over the years, going right back to King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, who owned it during the French Revolution and their beheadings after. They weren't the only deaths that legend has linked to the diamond though. They say that a tragedy befalls anyone who owns or wears it. Here are some random owners that I've just plucked out from the long list. Jacques Collet bought it and later committed suicide. Prince Ivan Kantinovsky was the next owner before being killed by Russian revolutionists. The original merchant who brought the diamond from India to Paris was later torn to pieces by wild dogs in Constantinople. This list of gore, misery and death just goes on and on. The last person to privately own the diamond was a woman called Evelyn McLean. She had her daughter die of an overdose and her son died in a car crash. Of course, these could all be just random tragic events. Some even say the stories were fabricated to add to the mystique of the diamond. But either way, the blood diamond now sits behind glass at the Smithsonian Museum. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the Lost Dutchman's Mine. Now according to legend, there is a vast and plentiful gold mine hidden somewhere in southwest USA. If you want me to be more specific, they say it's somewhere in the Superstition Mountains east of Phoenix, Arizona. In the 1840s, the Peralta family of northern Mexico supposedly developed rich gold mines in those mountains. They kept the location very secret though, and when they were supposedly killed by the Apache tribe, the secret of the mine's location died with them. Today, the area is known as the Massacre Grounds. A few decades later, a German man called Jacob Waltz set out to look for the mine. They called him the Dutchman. Now he tracked down one of the descendants of the family to help him find the mine. He and his partner, Jacob Weiser, worked the mine. There was more gold than they could ever imagine. They supposedly hid some caches of gold in the mountains. According to the story, Weiser was killed by the Apache tribe and Waltz died in Phoenix some 20 years later. He supposedly passed the knowledge of the mine's location onto his neighbor who cared for him before he died. Neither she nor other treasure hunters over the years have been successful in finding the mine. Many of them have met mysterious deaths during the search, leading to the legend of the lost Dutchman and the cursed treasure he found. Moving on to number 7 now, we have Cahuenga Pass. In 1964, a shepherd named Diego Marino told people he had found treasure in the mountains near Los Angeles. Today, the area is called Cahuenga Pass and also Whitley Heights. The treasure was immense, more than $200,000 worth of gold, diamonds and pearls. They had been left there on the trail by 4 agents from Mexico. They planned to exchange them for guns to aid a political struggle in Mexico, but before they'd reached their destination, one of the agents suddenly died in a mysterious death. The other agent suspected French spies were trying to bump them off one by one, so they split the treasure up and hid it in the hills. When they found out that the treasure had been stolen, they blamed each other. A fight broke out and 2 of the agents each other. Another agent died later while breaking up a bar fight. Meanwhile, the shepherd was in a tavern on his way to LA to sell his new treasure. That night he had a nightmare in which he entered LA with the treasure and died. He decided the next morning to bury it under a large ash tree. The shepherd fell ill though on the rest of his journey. His friend cared for him as he died. The shepherd's final words were to tell his friend where the treasure was buried so that he could have it. Soon after though, his friend had violent convulsions and he also died. He was buried by his son and his friend. They did manage to locate the treasure, but as you can probably guess by now, one of them had convulsions and died when they were digging. The other then just ran for his life. They say the treasure still remains there to this day, buried under an ash tree along the Cahuenga Pass. Moving on to number 6 now, we have the cursed dollars. In 2011, a 49-year-old man from Illinois found a bag containing $150,000 in his garden while he was picking broccoli. He told police and turned the bag over to them on the understanding that if the money was not claimed by anyone else by the end of 2012, it would be his. Eventually, his 87-year-old neighbor staked a claim. Before she died in January 2013, the woman, who suffered from dementia, told the court that she had gotten rid of the money because it was cursed. The court decided to give the bulk of the money to the woman's daughter and give the man a small finder's fee. However, just 10 days before he was set to collect his money, he died suddenly from diabetic problems after waiting 2 years for his share. Curse or tragic timing. At the number 5 spot now, we have the Money Pit. In 1795, 3 teenage boys stumbled across a man-made hole on Oak Island, just off the coast of Nova Scotia. Theories about who dug the hole range from Spanish sailors from a wrecked galleon to British troops fighting during the American Revolution. Whoever made it, legend says the hole has ancient treasure inside for anyone with the skills to retrieve it. So far, they have found wooden barriers, a strange layer of coconut husks, and a mysterious code written on a stone. It was deciphered and found to read 40 feet below, £2 million are buried. It's because of this that treasure hunters from all over the world have flocked to the island, hoping to be the ones to cash in, and many of them have met strange deaths. In 1861, a water pump exploded, killing a worker. In 1897, a man died in a pulley accident. In 1951, a team used a clamshell digger that fell off a barge and sunk. Most famously, in 1965, adventurer Robert Restall, his son and 2 of their co-workers died after inhaling poisonous gas while trapped in the hole. The Money Pit has claimed a number of victims over the years, and nobody is any closer to finding the treasure. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the KOHINOOR diamond. Just like the blood diamond we talked about earlier, this is a very expensive, very famous diamond that has been blamed for a number of deaths over the years. They say there's records of this diamond going back 5,000 years in the Middle East. The curse was first mentioned in 1306 though. The 105 carat diamond came with a Hindu text that read, "He who owns this diamond will own the world, but will also know all its misfortunes. Only God or a woman can wear it with impunity." So there you go, for any of you females watching, the curse won't affect you. Also, that's true if God is watching this video. It won't affect you either. It was stolen by the British in the 1800s. Queen Victoria had it cut up into small diamonds, some of which can be seen in the coronation crown of the Queen Mother. Is this a nod to the fact that a male can never wear the diamond? Perhaps. Do we have any volunteers watching to test out the theory? Next up at number 3 now, we have Charles Island. This island is located off the coast of Milford in Connecticut. They say that the whole island has been cursed not once, not twice, but 3 times in history. Thrice. According to legend, the first curse came in 1639 when the Paugussett tribe chief traded it to the European settlers, but not before cursing it over their kidnapping of his daughter. 60 years later, Scottish pirate Captain William Kidd was lured to the island in a trap that led to his trial and execution. He apparently cursed the island that led to his downfall. Fast forward to 1721 and a group of Connecticut sailors stumbled across some treasure in Mexico that belonged to an Aztec emperor called Guatemotzin. The sailors brought it back home to Connecticut, but soon after, disaster befell them that led to the death of 4 out of 5 of their group. The last man panicked, believing the treasure to be cursed, and buried it on Charles Island. In the years since, many treasure hunters have tried and failed to retrieve the cursed treasure, and locals blame the cursed island for the lack of any humans settling there in all this time. Next up at number 2 now, we have the curse of the Amber Room. Have you ever heard of the 8th wonder of the world? That's what people used to call this room. It was a gift to Peter the Great in 1716, celebrating peace between Russia and Prussia. It was covered floor to ceiling in gold and jewels. The walls were made of pure amber. Fast forward to World War II, and the Nazis managed to take control of the building and the room. Then they took the room. No, really. They took it. They took it apart and carried it bit by bit back to Germany. After the war was over, nobody knew where it was exactly. Some say it was buried in the mountains, others say the Nazis stole a fake one and that the Russians still have the real one. Either way, there is apparently a curse attached to the whole thing, supposedly. The curator of the room while the KGB investigated the case died of typhoid. An investigator was killed in a car crash after talking about it. A famous Amber Room hunter was mysteriously murdered in a forest. I'm beginning to think that this room doesn't want to be found. And finally at number 1 now, we have Qin Shi Huang's tomb. Qin Shi Huang is known as China's first emperor. When he died in 210 BC, his tomb was filled with everything that his people felt was appropriate for a man of his standing. This included hundreds of slaves, concubines, gold and jewels, as well as thousands of terracotta soldier statues. They make up what is now known as the Terracotta Army. As you can see from these pictures, the area is huge and a lot of it has actually been excavated, except for one area. To this day, the mausoleum which actually holds the emperor's body is off limits to all. Well, the official line is that the site is surrounded by a thick river of mercury which could easily kill excavators who are not too careful. Others say that this is just a cover story and that the tomb and its final treasures are protected by an ancient curse. There are writings that talk about a number of booby traps to protect the area. Are the scientists put off by the thought of this too? Either way, of all the treasures we've looked at so far, Qin Shi Huang's might actually remain untouched.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Anna Baker's wedding dress. In 1836, a man named Elias Baker purchased a mansion in Altoona, Pennsylvania and moved his small family in. Elias's oldest daughter was named Anna, and when she fell in love with a steel worker, things took a dark turn. Anna's father didn't want her dating this man, but she kept doing it in secret. The story goes that Anna and the man planned a secret wedding and were going to elope. Unfortunately, Elias found out and freaked out. He apparently purchased the steel mill that the man worked for and then forced him to have to move to an entirely different city so as to prevent him from being able to continue seeing Anna. Anna of course was furious with her father, and I'm sure this was only made worse by his decision to offer other men to her, to which she of course declined because That's just weird. Anna instead locked herself in a room with her wedding dress that she never got to wear. Anna unfortunately never married after that and spent the rest of her life being terribly upset about the whole incident. After her death, it is said that her anger and despair ended up going into the wedding dress. Members of the Baker family reported seeing the dress in different places around the house, despite no one moving it themselves. Some have even reported seeing Anna's spirit dressed in the gown around the house as well. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Golden Eagle. This car was a 1964 Dodge 330 limited edition, and it has been blamed for the death of around 14 people, which, like, how do we even let it get that out of control? It is said that the car started out as a police car originally, but there were 3 officers assigned to this car who all ended up taking their lives and other people's lives in horrible ways. Not in the car, but still super weird that this all seemed to happen after they had been using the cars for work. Because of this strange correlation, it ended up being sold off to another man. Throughout the 80s and 90s, it is said that because of the rumored cursed car, it became a point of interest for vandals. People began vandalizing the car only to meet their own untimely fates, which were all met in strange ways. For example, it was said that one vandal died from being struck by lightning. It is said that the curse is so strong that one person decided to merely touch the car, and it sent him into madness as he went on to commit atrocious crimes after that I cannot even detail here on YouTube. The car now belongs to Wendy Allen, who supposedly collects and decorates haunted cars for a living, so it seems as though it's finally found its home, far, far, far away from anyone else. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Blarney Stone. For hundreds of years, the Blarney Stone has resided within Blarney Castle, which is near Cork, Ireland. The stone is a piece of limestone, and legend says that those who give the stone a smooch will then be given the gift of the gab. This little smooch can bestow the power of being able to talk your way out of any situation, which would be incredibly useful, but there are those who always try to indulge in too much of a good thing. The issues start when you attempt to take a piece of the stone, no matter how small, away from its home. Those who don't follow the rules and take the stone end up being cursed with bad luck. Every year the castle receives parcels from greedy tourists who tried their luck at stealing portions of the stone. These parcels are returned with the intention of lifting the curse of misfortune. It is said that once the stone is returned, the curse will be lifted, which is most definitely good news. So I guess the moral of this curse, however, is to not be greedy and to just follow the rules. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Terracotta Army. The Terracotta Army was discovered in China, and it is a massive piece of funerary art that is thought to be one of the most massive archaeological finds of modern times. It truly is incredible, and it's something that's been attracting tourists from all over the world since its discovery, but for those who did the discovering, well, things haven't been going so well. In 1974, there were 7 farmers who happened to stumble upon this huge discovery, and you would think that this would come with some kind of a reward, but instead, things have been going terribly for them. Soon after the discovery, the government claimed their farmland. After this, their homes were demolished in order to make way for the exhibition halls and gift shops that were to come. They didn't just get nothing for the discovery, they ended up losing because of it. This is exactly why many people believe that perhaps with the unearthing of this huge piece of art, they also dug up some sort of curse that was buried long ago. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Myrtle's Plantation Mirror. Myrtle's Plantation is located in St. Francisville, Louisiana, and it is said to be one of the most haunted places in the entire world, which seems like that would make a lot of sense. One of the reasons for this spooky reputation is because of a mirror that resides inside of it. It is said that this mirror holds the spirit of Sarah Woodruff and 2 of her children. Legend goes that a woman named Chloe was a slave at the plantation, and she drew up a sort of plan to get revenge on the owners of it, Sarah and her husband. Chloe baked a cake full of poison for them, but in the end, the rest of the family, except for the husband, ended up consuming the poisonous cake. When they passed away, it is said that their spirits went into the only mirror that was uncovered at the time, thus this haunted mirror was born. People who have since visited the plantation have claimed to see the family in the reflection, as well as handprints on the glass, despite the continuous polishing. In our number 5 spot today, we have tap shoes. These tap shoes were listed on eBay, and they are cute as can be. They're black shiny ones with a red bow to tie them together. They look recital ready, but apparently they haven't been used in a long time, and the reason behind it all is chilling. Legend goes that these shoes once belonged to a little girl who loved to dance. At some point, the shoes were retired, and she would go on to meet an untimely fate. The shoes ended up being placed with other old The shoes ended up being placed with other old memento items and put in a closet and sort of forgotten about. The shoes, as well as the other items with it, ended up being part of an estate sale years later, but the spirit of the person who passed may have already had some other ideas about what they wanted to happen to the shoes. The seller of the shoes reported that there were mysterious happenings surrounding the shoes as they were clearing out their late aunt's house, the person who was the owner of the shoes. They explained that there were mysterious knocking sounds coming from inside of the closet, almost as if the shoes were tapping by themselves. Also, as it turns out, the house had quite a gruesome history that included killings, so if not the aunt's ghost, perhaps there's another one lurking somewhere in there. In our number 4 spot today, we have the dark mirror. This mirror now resides with the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and the Occult, but prior to that, this mirror was received from the owner who had purchased it from a psychic fair. It is believed that this mirror was created sometime around the 1820s or 30s, and it is actually quite beautiful to look at despite the sinister things it seems to hold. The owner who gave it to the museum explained that every time they peered into the mirror, they saw these extremely upsetting things while looking into the dark mirror's reflection. The museum has said that since they added the mirror to their collection, there have been guests who have also reported the same kind of things. Guests have claimed to see things reflected back at them like sightings of their own corpse. In our number 3 spot today, we have the water jug. Okay, estate sales are weird places. There are weird things there, some quirky items, but this has got to be one of the strangest on a whole bunch of different levels. It's a decorative drinking jug, but it's being held in a miniature cart that's being pulled by a porcelain donkey. I truly could not make that item up, nor could I make up the fact that this kitschy item is also apparently haunted. The seller of this item spoke about how he grew up with the item around as it was always displayed at his grandmother's house and that she always kept it full of water. This was all fine and dandy until after she passed away and he was taking care of the estate and he bumped into it. How was this jug filled with water when no one was there to fill it? He thought that perhaps it was just old leftover water and he just ignored it, but the same thing seemed to happen repeatedly. And it wasn't even like the water level was staying the same. It would increase, seemingly all on its own. The seller decided that this was not an item that they wanted to hold on to and decided it would be best to pass on to someone who is ready to take on this mysterious, strange object. In our number 2 spot today, we have Letta the doll. Before we really dive into this one, can we just acknowledge how all cursed dolls look like they would be a cursed doll? I mean, like Annabelle, Robert, they both totally look like dolls that would be holding a secret, scary curse. And this doll, Letta, is just another one that we can add to that list. Letta is a doll that is said to be around 200 years old and is extremely cursed. This doll is called Letta for short, as its full name is Letta Me Out. Really clever. The doll was originally found underneath a house, which definitely feels like the origin story of a haunted doll. The creepy discovery came 47 years ago. Letta still lives with the man who found him. The hauntings of Letta include things like the doll walking around on its own at night, the owners finding objects around the house that have been moved into odd places. Some people have even seen Letta move right in front of their own eyes, and the owner also reports finding little doll-sized scuff marks around the home as well. It is said that this doll once belonged to someone who passed away while holding it, thus their spirit became trapped inside of the doll. Apparently one day in an interview about Letta, as the interviewer was asking questions about the person who passed, the doll began to move in her lap. Yeah, no thank you. Letta has his own Instagram and Facebook page in case you want to hear more about all of the creepiness surrounding this cursed doll. In our number 1 spot today, we have the mask. This metal mask resembles the face of a monkey. It's definitely already a little strange looking, but the story is even more interesting. According to the seller of this item, they explained that they acquired this mask in Thailand, but not before they experienced a supernatural battle where a witch used spells to bind the spirit of a jinn to the mask, trapping it in. Since then, the mask is said to be full of supernatural powers, some of which could bring benefits, but it takes a whole pile of work. This mask is said to have the ability to fend off vampires as well as potentially bring riches to its owner, but it needs some things in return. The entity in the mask needs regular offerings of food and drink, and it also requires the owner to meditate in front of it for 20 minutes 3 times a day. Talk about high maintenance. If a person refuses to do these things while in possession of the mask, it is said that a cruel fate awaits them. I mean, what do you expect when you anger an ancient spirit?